Sarah jolted awake at 3:17 a.m., her heart hammering against her ribs. The sound that had torn her from sleep came again, distinct footsteps on the stairs, each creak methodical and purposeful. Living alone in her grandmother's sprawling Victorian in rural Maine meant Sarah knew every sound the house made. The wind whistling through century-old window frames, the radiator's metallic ping, the subtle settling of wooden beams. But these footsteps belonged to no ghost or imagination. They belonged to someone real, and they were getting closer. She fumbled for her phone with trembling fingers, muffling her breathing as she slid off the bed and wedged herself into the narrow space between her dresser and the wall. The footsteps paused outside her door. The brass knob turned slowly, a quarter inch at a time. Sarah bit down on her knuckle to keep from making a sound as the door inched open, revealing a tall silhouette framed in the hallway's darkness. When police finally arrived, they found Sarah still wedged behind the dresser, phone clutched to her chest. Though they found no intruder, what they discovered in the basement made their blood run cold. A meticulously arranged living space with a sleeping bag, personal items, and a wall covered with instant photographs, all of Sarah, sleeping, eating, reading in her favorite chair. Most disturbing were items arranged on a makeshift shrine, her missing hairbrush, several pairs of underwear, and a journal filled with detailed observations of her daily routines, dating back 3 months. The final entry, written that very night, contained just 5 words. Tonight I introduce myself properly. David needed the money badly enough to ignore the warnings from the previous night guard, who'd quit without notice. Something's not right in that place, the man had told the security company. Especially on the 5th floor, the old pediatric ward. The abandoned Westlake Memorial Hospital loomed against the night sky like a carcass, its windows dark except for the occasional security light. David's footsteps echoed through empty corridors as he made his rounds, the beam of his flashlight catching dust motes swirling in the stagnant air. The hospital had been vacant for 8 years, awaiting demolition that kept being delayed by budget constraints and asbestos concerns. On his 3rd night, during his 2 a.m. patrol, David's radio crackled with static as he approached the 5th floor. The elevator had been decommissioned, forcing him to take the stairs, each footfall amplified in the cavernous stairwell. As he pushed through the fire door marked Pediatrics Ward, the temperature plummeted so rapidly his breath clouded before him. That's when he heard it, the unmistakable sound of a child's laughter, high-pitched and playful, echoing from somewhere down the darkened corridor. "Hello?" David called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "Security? Anyone there?" The laughter came again, followed by the patter of small feet on linoleum. Sweeping his flashlight across the floor, David froze. A trail of small wet footprints led down the hallway, barefoot, child-sized, each print glistening as if freshly made. The prints continued around a corner before abruptly stopping mid-stride. David radioed for backup from the city police. While waiting, he reviewed the security camera feed on his tablet, scanning for signs of intruders. What he saw made his blood congeal. While he'd been examining the footprints, the camera had captured a small figure, no more than 4 feet tall, standing motionless in a doorway behind him. As David moved forward on the recording, the figure darted to another doorway, always remaining just out of his line of sight. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like stop-motion animation. After filing a report with police, David researched the hospital's history. In 1987, a fire had broken out in the pediatric oncology ward. 3 children had perished, trapped in a playroom when fire doors malfunctioned. Westlake Memorial closed 6 months later. The demolition contractor found David's security logs so disturbing they fast-tracked the building's destruction. The night before demolition, automated security cameras captured one final image. 3 small figures standing hand in hand on the 5th floor, looking directly into the camera. The image was later analyzed by experts who confirmed it couldn't have been digitally manipulated. David never spoke publicly about what he experienced during his final patrol of the hospital that night. He moved across the country, changed careers, and refuses all interview requests. His only comment, given to a former colleague years later, "They weren't trying to scare me. They were trying to warn me about what else was trapped in there with them. I know it sounds crazy, Evelyn Mercer whispered, her hands trembling as she passed the iPad to James. But Henry's been sending me emails. Henry's been dead for 8 months. James had seen plenty in his 15 years as a cybersecurity specialist, but the haunted look in the 78-year-old widow's eyes gave him pause. He'd come to troubleshoot her Wi-Fi issues, not deal with what was clearly a grief-induced misunderstanding, probably spam emails or old scheduled messages. Let's take a look, Mrs. Mercer, he said gently, expecting to find obvious phishing attempts. What he found instead made the hair on his arm stand up. Dozens of emails, all from Henry's actual Gmail account, all sent after his death certificate had been issued. The most recent had arrived that morning at 3:47 am. Evelyn, you left the gas burner on again last night. I turned it off, but please be more careful. Remember what the doctor said about your memory. Also, I don't like that new aide. She's been looking through your jewelry box when you nap. The pearl earrings are already missing. Love always. H. James scrolled through older messages. Each contained intimate details only a husband would know. References to conversations Evelyn had with friends after Henry's death. Observations about repairs and visitors to the house. Yesterday, after I got this one, Evelyn said, pointing to a message warning about spoiled milk in the refrigerator, I found the carton moved to the front shelf. I know I didn't do it. James traced the IP address. The emails were originating from inside Evelyn's home network, specifically from an old desktop computer in Henry's study, a computer that hadn't been used since his death and had been powered down for months. When they entered the study, the computer was off, a fine layer of dust undisturbed on the keyboard. James checked anyway. The power cable was completely unplugged. I'd like to bring in some equipment, James said, keeping his voice steady, just to check your network. What his diagnostic tools revealed defied explanation. Someone, or something, was using the household's smart devices as a surveillance system. The smart thermostat recorded conversations through its microphone, intended only for voice commands. The security cameras captured every movement. Most disturbing was the pattern of access. All activity occurred between 2 and 4 am, when the house's occupants would normally be asleep. James shipped the compromised desktop to his company's forensic lab. Their analysis revealed a level of coding sophistication that exceeded known capabilities of even state-level hackers. More chilling was the program's adaptive nature. It seemed to be learning, evolving with each interaction. The emails stopped after James removed every smart device from Evelyn's home. 3 weeks later, she called him in a panic. Her new, non-smart television had turned itself on in the middle of the night, displaying a single line of text. I'll find another way to reach you. Some connections never break. The FBI's cybercrime unit still lists the case as open. Their leading theory involves an elaborate identity theft operation, though they've never identified a suspect or motive. Evelyn has a simpler explanation. Death couldn't stop Henry from watching over me. He always was stubborn that way. Mark's eyes flicked to his rearview mirror for the dozenth time in as many minutes. The same high-beam headlights had been trailing him since he left the hospital parking garage after his graveyard shift. At first, he brushed it off. This stretch of I-95 was the main artery back to the city. But when he deliberately slowed to 45 in a 70 zone, and the vehicle matched his pace perfectly, the first cold tendrils of fear crept up his spine. Just paranoia from too many true crime podcasts, he muttered, cranking up the radio to drown out his thoughts. But when he abruptly exited the highway only to watch those same headlights swerve across 2 lanes to follow, the truth became undeniable. Someone was following him. His apartment was still 15 minutes away. 15 minutes of isolated county roads without streetlights or witnesses. Making a split-second decision, Mark veered into a 24-hour gas station, positioning his car directly beneath the fluorescent canopy. The pursuing vehicle, a black Dodge Charger with tinted windows, slowed as it approached. As it crawled past, the passenger window slid down just enough for Mark to glimpse a gloved hand extending outward, index finger pointed at him, thumb raised in a mock shooting gesture. The Charger disappeared into the night, But Mark sat frozen, unable to restart his car. He called the police, feeling foolish even as he described the encounter. 3 weeks later, a detective contacted him. They'd apprehended a suspect in a string of abductions, driving a black Charger. During interrogation, the man revealed a chilling detail. He selected victims by following them home from night shifts, learning their patterns before striking. Among the evidence recovered from his vehicle was a notebook containing license plate numbers, addresses, and work schedules. Mark's name was crossed off the list with a single notation: too cautious. Moved on. 5 names after Mark's had no such notation, and those people were still missing. Elena's restoration business specialized in breathing new life into forgotten antiques, but the ornate silver-backed vanity mirror she'd purchased at the Dauphin Street estate sale radiated something different, something that made her restoration workshop feel suddenly colder. She'd bought it for a steal after the auctioneer mentioned previous buyers had mysteriously backed out. Just superstitious nonsense, the auctioneer had scoffed. All New Orleans rumors about the LeBlanc estate, nothing any sensible person would believe. Working late one night, Elena noticed something peculiar as she polished the tarnished silver back. Beneath decades of oxidation, deliberate scratch marks emerged, too uniform to be accidental damage. Intrigued, she carefully traced them onto translucent paper. When she held the tracing to the light, her blood turned to ice water. The scratches formed precise, elegant handwriting. She stands behind me when I sleep. She is not in my station. Disturbed but skeptical, Elena contacted the Historical Society about the mirror's provenance. What she learned sent her spiraling down a rabbit hole of newspaper archives and police reports. The mirror had belonged to Elise LeBlanc, a socialite who'd become increasingly unstable in the weeks before her death in 1973. Her husband reported she'd spend hours staring into the mirror, insisting someone, or something, was watching her from inside it. She'd begun sleeping facing the wall, claiming she was most active at night. The official report ruled her death a suicide, but the autopsy photos revealed strange details: deep scratches on her back she couldn't have inflicted herself, and peculiar bruising around her neck in the pattern of slender fingers. Most chilling was Elena's conversation with the estate liquidator. When she mentioned the scratched message, the color drained from the woman's face. "That's not possible," she whispered. "I cleaned that mirror myself before the auction. There were no messages." That night, Elena covered the mirror with a sheet before going to bed. She awoke at 3:27 a.m. to find the sheet on the floor and condensation on the glass, as if someone had been breathing on the other side. In the center of the fogged surface, a single word had been traced by an unseen finger: soon.